is they're using chop saws, they're using cut saws, all of which they're not wearing the correct PPE, they're not wearing safety glasses, they're not wearing face shields. I've also seen some underground guys, basically doing what you guys do. They're underneath the machine or they're underneath the bucket, that bucket's swinging around, they're working in the hole and they don't have their hard hats on. No. I don't know about you guys, but if that bucket's sitting there swinging, the last thing I'd want to have happen is that thing's, basically slamming my head and I not have anything covering it. And that's the reason for, obviously, why you want to wear a hard hat in that situation. But you're also in situations from time to time where there may be somebody else working around, somebody else, some other trade, working overhead, maybe working on scaffolding, working on a roof. And let's say they're working right next to you. That's another example as to why you want a hard hat. And also, too, you may go from where you're working or here, and yet the truck or the vehicle is over here. You need to get something out of it, and you basically walk right across site, exposed to all kinds of overhead hazards that weren't obviously present in your area of work, but you're exposed to those hazards when you go from one end to the other. I mean, I've seen jobs where guys are doing grading on a job, which is pretty simple, straightforward, right? No real need for a hard hat in that situation. But they're working right underneath the roof where they got tiles stacked up on the roof. And it's funny because I had done an inspection on that job on Monday, and then a week later, same guys were there, and then the tiles that were actually stocked up on the roof ended up falling right down next to one. And this was right after I told them, hey, listen, guys, there's material up on that roof. You know what? You may want to wear a hard hat just in case. No, it's okay. Everything will be fine. But then lo and behold, something falls down right next to a guy, almost hits him and cleans his head right in half. So that's the need for wearing hard hats right there. Also, gloves. Whenever it comes to gloves, you guys, sometimes you're not working in the most sanitary conditions, which we've spoken about before, but anytime you're working with, say, a saw or anything that can cut your hand, scrape your hand, you need to wear gloves. And gloves, hand injuries are one of the biggest injuries in construction, but not just construction, in general industry. A lot of people, they get cut, they get scrapes, they get nicked fingers, and before you know it, they've either got to get a couple stitches or they got to get an infection from it. And everybody thinks, okay, well, it's just a hand injury, it's just a minor cut, minor nick, minor scrape, not a big deal. I'll just let it go. If you're constantly working in conditions where it's dirty and that stuff gets infected, then it turns into something more. We've had companies where a bunch of little hand injuries basically turned into, it just drove up their comp rate because there were so many little claims, like little nick here, little cut there, little scratch here, but yet it was recordable. And when they're recordable, that means the insurance company knows about it and they end up jacking up your workers' comp rates, which ultimately overall makes it hard for you to compete because it increases your costs. So we want to keep those costs low so that we can keep everybody employed and stay in business. All right. Now, when it comes to PPE, you got to maintain this stuff. You don't want to just throw it in the back of the truck like I've seen before and the stuff gets beat to hell. Like if you want to use a face shield and you got that thing sitting there rolling around in the back of the truck, it gets all scratched, it gets all scraped up. And before you know it, when it comes time for you to use it, it's scratched to hell. You can't see through it. And what happens? You look at it, I can't see through this. So it goes by the wayside and you don't end up using it. That's why it's important to maintain the stuff so you can actually use it. So it's there, it's available, and it's ready to go for you when you need it. Nobody likes looking through a dirty car windshield, right? Same thing goes for a face shield. Same thing goes for safety glasses. Maintain the stuff. Make sure you take care of it. I mean, Van, he provides the stuff. You guys got to take it upon yourselves to use it. Also, boots. How's everybody's boots looking? No holes? I've seen guys that have had duct tape around those things and they've lasted for as long. Yep. Many of us have, but you know what? When you get to that point when you're wrapping up your boots with duct tape, it's probably time to get a new pair. And that's one thing that he can't provide you. When it comes to work boots, that's something you guys got to provide. I don't know what your policy is on safety toe or steel toe, but OSHA says that you're not required to have steel toe depending on what you're going to be doing. They just need to say you have to have work boots. So it doesn't have to be something terribly expensive, but I always say, when it comes to footwear, get something comfortable and get something that's gonna last, invest the money and get yourself a good pair of boots, because before you know it, if they're cheapies, they'll just get torn up real quick, they won't last, and they're not comfortable as well. So, respiratory protection. Anytime you're gonna be cutting, like concrete, remember what we talked about a couple months ago? We touched on silica and how exposure to that stuff over time, it scratches up your lungs and you can develop respiratory problems from that. Anytime you're cutting concrete where you can't do any wet cutting, make sure you wear some respiratory protection. And what you guys got, if I can remember correctly, is the N95 NIOSH dust masks. Use those. Those are the good ones. They're approved, but you also have to use them right, because I've seen from time to time straps, guys, they'll wear the mask, but they'll only have one strap attached. In order to wear that piece of equipment right, you have to have both straps around the back of your head, around the back of your neck. And believe it or not, that's something that, me as a safety inspector, whenever I do inspections, that's one thing that catches my eye whenever I'm on a job. And that's, compliance officers, OSHA compliance officers basically do the same thing as me. So if I see it, if it catches my eye, it would catch their eye as well. So then that gives them the reason to come over and say, hey, what's going on over here? I see that your guy's incorrectly wearing his respirator there. Also, too, has he had a physical? Has he had a fit test? Has somebody shown him how to properly use that piece of equipment? Those are all questions that you actually have to ask, because according to their standards, you have to be shown how to use the thing. You have to have documentation of it, and you have to either have undergo a physical from a physician, or you have to fill out a health survey and have it basically graded by a licensed healthcare professional. So it's just a simple act of something like not fastening a strap on your respirator. Ultimately it's for your protection so that you don't breathe that crap in, but it's also like a flag, and it gives like a compliance officer to come over, reason to come over and say, hey, what's going on over here? I see you're not using that correctly. Just some of the smallest little things. Obviously it's for your protection, but also too in that if you're not doing things right or trying to make the attempt to do things right, it's all the more reason for a compliance officer to come over and, do an inspection on you, which we don't want. It's no fun. I've had a couple of projects and they're out there, they're hiding in the bushes like Indians. I had one project where 2 roofers and the superintendent were up on a roof. The superintendent was inspecting the roofer's work, and the compliance officer just sat there across the street and was snapping photos of the whole thing. And they came over and said, hey, listen, I'm so-and-so, I'm in the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. I just want to talk to you about this issue. This is what I saw by standing across the street. And that's how it goes. And once they come over to you, like that's it. They've got enough evidence that they need that, they basically have a case. And then they'll tell you what's going on, what's wrong. Okay, this is wrong, this is wrong. And okay. And anyways, depending on the person, depending on the compliance officer, they may say, hey, listen, and you know what? I see that this is what happened, and you may just want to do yourself a favor and clean it up or make it right. And then on the other side, you've got the hard asses where they nail you for everything. But then in the middle, you also may have one that says, oh yeah, that's fine, that's fine. And before you know it, 6 months later, you get a citation in the mail for what he said was fine. So when it comes to OSHA, you don't want to give them a reason to come over and talk to you. Unless they're good reasons. Unless you're doing everything right and they say, hey, listen, you guys are doing a great job. Keep up the good work. Which hardly happens. It hardly happens, but it does happen from time to time. I've had compliance officers, say, hey, listen, I mean, for the most part, this is a really nice, really good project, But then again, I've had others where they're just nasty. But anyways, when it comes to PPE, you guys make sure that you use it, he provides it. Make sure it's in good condition. That way it's ready for you to use whenever you need it. So anytime you come here, before you go out, make sure you check the trucks, make sure you got your dust masks, make sure you've got safety glasses, make sure you've got face shields, gloves, the whole 9. That way that stuff's available for you when you need it. Any questions? All right, thank you for your time. Sorry about the technical difficulties.